So we're going to just continue to refine, and let's work on the mouth a little bit more. The teeth we're going to shade with a little bit of I think this color that we made the iris with. So if you mixed a black, you just want to add a little white to it. If you mixed your organic black with the phthalo blue and burnt umber, I just want a wash of that, and I'm putting it on a small angle brush. I'm going to come here and just shade underneath the upper, if you call this a lip or the muzzle of the bunny. We just want those teeth to go behind have a little bit of cast shadow on them. And I'm just going to drag a little line down the center to give a little separation between the teeth. It should be soft, not too, you don't want it to get too dark. He doesn't need to have rotten teeth from all the candy he eats. And we want to fill in the back of this mouth with a dark color. I don't want to go black again. Black is really harsh. But I'm thinking a real deep red color, because the inside of your mouth tends to be red. So we're going to use some of the burnt umber, and I'm going to add a little bit of the naphtha red to it to make it a little bit more of a deep black cherry color. And I just want to paint in this mouth back here. To create the shadows inside his mouth, or her mouth. I guess she's wearing an Easter bonnet. She's probably a girl bunny. Just paint in around the tongue. I'm hoping you can see how you don't need very many colors to paint a design, and actually it all hangs together better if you don't use too many colors, that you just keep repeating variations of the same ones over and over. So far we've used raw sienna, burnt umber, a red, a blue, a green, and white, and a yellow. We used a bright yellow. So basically the three primary colors and a couple earth tones. You could probably mix some type of green from your phthalo blue and yellow if you want, and actually skip a green, but this is such a pretty intense green that I like using it. So I'm going to let this dry. I'm seeing probably need another layer over this, but it's starting to set up in spots, and if I keep trying to paint over it, I'm just going to lift the paint and cause more blotches. But you can get the gist of what we're going for. I'm going to work inside the ears a little more. I'd like some darker shadows down here near the inner ear. So we're going to add some shading in the browns just to make that darker. And we can use, sort of this color actually that we used inside the mouth. A little bit of red in it. And I just want to create a little bit more of a fold down here in his ear. So I'm going to shade up here and let it kind of trail off. I'm going to leave some of that pink on the outside. And we're going to do the same on this other side. So we're going to put some white fur coming out into this ear. And this dark color will help give us something to contrast with that. Your lights will show up better if they're against a dark color. So again, we're just letting that end trail off, and I'm going to flip it over and just add a little bit more dark out here. So you can see we're kind of getting an inner ear going on. And I'll repeat the same thing on the other side. So, but just the opposite. So we're going to start out on, we're shading here along the top of the hat brim. And then on this outer side I'm going to come in and leaving maybe 1/4 of an inch or so of pink showing. And then pulling up and trailing off. I'm doing the same thing on the other side. But I'm probably leaving a little more space on this side from the outer ear, pulling that up and trailing off, and then flipping the brush over, so we're doing a float that has a soft edge on either side. And the reason I'm darkening here again is we're going to be pulling some white hair out over that ear, and I want the darkness to give some contrast so the light white fur will show up. Darkening that a little bit more here in the middle. And I'm just barely touching the brush down. I'm not really even side loading. If I press too hard, then the paint just wants to pick up. I'm just tippy tapping it. Okay. So there we've got some inner ears going on. I think I went a little bit of a band around these eyes to darken, you know, just to create a little more interest on this big wide face. So I'm going to float some of the burnt umber again, and I'm going to do it maybe 1/4 of an inch out from the iris. So let's start here, maybe a little more than 1/4, but I'm going to just touch down here above the eye and pull, and as I come down to the corner of the eye, I'm just bringing it in a little bit closer so it tapers. And then I'm going to flip the brush over and go the other direction. Swing down around this eye. On this side I'm kind of maintaining an even distance. And then pull it back into the shadow here. So we're almost creating like a little ring around the eye. When I draw the pattern up, I'll put this on your pattern so you don't have to guess where the line goes. So again, we're starting, sometimes these things develop as I'm working along. When I actually get it down in color, I can visualize it a little better than I can in black and white. line drawing, so I see things that need to be adjusted. So we're tapering in. I'm going to pull out around this side. Shade a little here on this outer cheek. Again, you'll see I'm doing that float where I float one direction and then flip the brush over so the paint meets in the center, and float the opposite way so it softens where it meets, so you don't have a hard edge anywhere. Let that dry. I'm going to darken the bottom edge of these ears a little. Just pull a wash of that up the side and let that bleed out to nothing. This is just very wet paint. It's just it's not quite even. You can't really classify it as a side load because I'm more pulling straight up. But because this edge doesn't have paint on it, it helps it bleed out to nothing. But it gives us a little bit of shading on the bottom of these ears, so they'll lighten as they go up. Let's do a little bit of highlighting. We can always go back and continue to refine our shadows later, but it helps sometimes to get some highlights in and see where you're going. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to highlight the center of this hat band, and I'm going to put some yellow in it. Again, we're repeating our colors that we've used through the design. So I'm going to just float some yellow in there. Flip it over and float the other direction. So it's right in the middle, and I'm going to just keep walking it out to the edges a little bit. And when I say walking a float out, I'm starting at one point and then I repeat it by just moving over maybe 1/8 of an inch and keep working each direction, just working out about 1/8 of an inch and tapping it down so it sort of blends out, so it's spread out in a wider area. Okay, so And I don't know if you can see on the camera because it's very subtle, but we've got some yellow right there in the middle. Let's also put some yellows down here on the loops of the bow. We'll float around the top edge. And again, these aren't our highlights, final highlights. These are just to start. We're going to put some whites over top to pop them out more. And we can just brush some yellows down on the bottom edge of this loop. I'm not really side loading, it's just very juicy paint that I'm just doing a wash over that with. So just to add a little bit of that color into the bow. And here on the back edge of these inside loops. Now our hat band, other than white, is the lightest color we have so on the palette, so we need to add something lighter, which is white. We're going to move up to the white color and float some of that on the hat band, or no, I'm sorry, not the hat band, but the crown of the hat. I'm going to float here across the top with some white. I'm using, again, this kind of 1/2 inch angle brush. And let's float the front edge of the hat brim. And again, this paint is very juicy, lots of water, so I can spread it a long way. I'll come back and walk this on the hat crown down a little bit. Let's see, we had just a touch back here on the inside of the back inside edge of the hat brim. You don't want that to get too light, so this is just a real wash of the white. It's not going to show up too much. It just lightens it just a little bit. I'm going to put some white here in the center of the bunny's face. And I've got the brush side loaded with the white. But I just want to keep this very soft, so I'm working that out. I don't want any hard edges anywhere. So I'm coming up the middle, and I'm going to flip the brush over and soften those together. Again, the paint's to the middle edge. And as I come up here at the top, I'm going to just work downward so that we don't have any hard edges of white. We just want to blend in some white in the center area. And we're going to come back later and we'll dry brush over this too, which will soften it down more. But I just want to start getting a suggestion of a highlight in some of these areas of the face. So it's just, you know, it's at a wash of color. And again, I'm flipping my brush over so that the paint is always to the inside wet edge. So the paint's up, flip the brush over, the paint's down. Flip it up, flip it down. I'm switching to a small number 2 brush, flat, and I'm going to start putting in some white around the eyes. I'm just keeping this outer edge soft. I don't want it to be a real hard ring. We're going to add some little fur strokes. So he has little hairs coming out from here. And just be careful not to go over the iris. You don't want to have to repaint that in.